Welcome to the latest episode of the O Ship Show. I'm Freddie Laker, and today we're diving into the transformative power of fun in the workplace. Imagine a work environment where joy and play are not only encouraged but drive inspiration, boost productivity, and strengthen team connections. Sound too good to be true? Well, think again. Our guest today, Brett, is a master of integrating humor and creativity into high-stakes marketing strategies. From crafting purpose-led brand strategies to revolutionizing social media marketing, Brett's journey from surf-obsessed kid in Australia to chief digital officer at Inspira Marketing Group is nothing short of inspiring. And how can incorporating fun into your work culture change your business? Let's find out. Stay tuned for this week of O Ship. Brett, welcome to O Ship. How are you?
G'day, mate. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
So good to see you again. I recently had the opportunity to reconnect with you after working with you so many years ago, and it's so fun to watch what you've been up to, and I'm just so thrilled that I'm going to get to introduce you to my other friends on O Ship.
Epic, mate. It's good.
I mentioned in the intro that you were a surfer, and you may still be a surfer. I would love to hear, because I think it's just such a cool sport, how did your love of surfing end up shaping your approach to business and marketing?
Great question. Let's clear something up super quickly. I'm not the greatest surfer in the world, but I absolutely love it. I started surfing super young, 8, 9 years old, and it's absolutely been a huge driver in my life. Anybody that finds that much joy from anything, to be able to drop that into your life is a huge plus. Like, my goal was to be a pro surfer, and I was clearly shithouse at it. So how could I be in surfing without competing? And I always had a love for art. That got me into graphic design. Graphic design got me into Billabong, which in Australia was the largest surf company. And that's absolutely where I did an MBA directly after my MBA. And it was a pretty hybrid one, actually. And the idea of fun, it wasn't even taught. It just ran through that industry. It ran through that company automatically. So everything that I learned was wrapped in this bubble of fun. And it's difficult not to learn, not to grow, not to be inspired when it's so much fun. Like, I was itching to get to work every day. I worked with a bunch of like-minded people. When the surf was on, we surfed. It was epic. It was like what you would ask for your dream job was that for me.
When you and I first met, I was the interim head of marketing and e-commerce for a company called Nixon. That was just a very trendy watch brand. It has a good following in the surf community. And one of the things that really blew me away about that place was when I'd show up to work, they basically had stacked with surfboards in the office. And sometimes I get in and go, "Where's everyone?" And they say, "Oh, the waves are great today," and everyone's out surfing. And it blew my mind. But I loved it. Everyone got their work done, got their job done at the end of the day. But when they appreciated some good waves, everyone did it. And I think it made people love the company that much more. I think it was good for the culture, and I think it made people loyal to the company. But there's something to be said to, I think, the stage of this. There's one side of it when you're having fun and enjoy your job. It makes you excited to get up in the morning. I think there's another side of this, that when you are having fun and enjoy your job, and there's lots of different levels of that. I think there can be fun in the culture, and actually just the work is inherently fun. It also makes it really easier to get through the harder times. I think when things are not so good, that maybe breaks the stress up a little bit. You and I first met, you were actually running a company called Social Supply Co. And so I know Inspira is a pretty good sized company, but I love my entrepreneurs here on O Ship. I'd love to understand, what inspired you to start Social Supply Co.
It was interesting. It was probably, and everyone's going to say this, right place, right time. I was pretty new to social media marketing as it was emerging. So I had the opportunity to be a part of the genesis of it. The surf industry, I guess the action sports industry, was a little bit slower in like understanding those concepts, just purely by the way and the process in which they created content, they went to market. It was very seasonal. Social media was the opposite of that. It was very hour to hour, minute to minute. So I got the opportunity to work with a bunch of action sports businesses directly around social media marketing. And gathering a couple of those businesses, we were off to the races.
Mm.
It happened pretty word of mouth. So it's always great to do that because it is a personal connection. That is the introduction. So the relationship is already started off. It's very collaborative, and fun was built into all of these brands, which is why I feel so lucky. That's the way that we started. We were pushing marketing for surf companies, outdoor companies, travel companies, all those things that I was really passionate about. So not only is the marketing fun to do, but it was also super fun to work with these companies that I loved. And I could really set myself into understand the audience because it was me and create some really good marketing in a fun way that was fun in the process as well.
One of the things that's interesting about the work that you're talking about is these are cool industries. I've got people who worked in concrete industries and
Yep.
and other things that may not sound all that exciting to some folks out there. And I think some people, whether they're social folks or branding folks, that this kind of opportunity to work with these brands that are just so inherently cool, I think can be a dream for a lot of people. I think there's a big difference though between a brand and a business and a product or a service being inherently fun, and then you saying as a leader, doesn't matter what industry you're in, like injecting that fun into your business. And so what you've had an opportunity, and I think you're just inherently a fun and funny guy, frankly. How can you give advice to other people, like for other leaders, to create an environment where fun is basically encouraged, but at the same time without compromising productivity?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think that state of mind, that positive state of mind is important in everyday life, whether you're digging ditches or building businesses. I always loved doing what I did throughout my whole career, whether that was through the hard times or whatever. I was also lucky enough to have really positive mentors, bosses, role models throughout my career. And it wasn't something that was taught. It was just that fun people bring you along for the ride. And
Mm-hmm.
if you can see the fun in what you do, it's going to make the job a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, it's marketing. We're not saving lives. We're building businesses. We're doing fundamental communication. And communication at the end of the day is connection between people. And that's the fundamentals of fun, is being around people, communicating, getting the most out of them, giving and listening and being empathetic. And they all ladder up to a positive energy, and fun and positivity are usually holding hands.
Yeah, it's funny. I never really thought about it like this, but I think when you have the kind of conversations we're having right now, it's easy to think about how does a leader do this? How is this some kind of top-down thing where people inherently infuse it in their company? But one of the other things people should probably be thinking about is looking for these qualities in people while they're in the hiring process.
Yeah.
If it's a strange metaphor, but it's life is a party, and you can't inherently find people that are going to break the party up because it's just not in them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Look, my second company, a company called iChameleon, had an infamously clone culture, but I produced some of the best work of my entire career. We won every single international advertising award if we could win, or certainly recognized at every single international award. And we had a lot of fun doing that. But I think part of the element was, as we were looking at the people who should join the company, we were looking for that passion. And at the same time, you could argue you can have people that are really passionate, but also really pretentious. And then you can have people that are super passionate and don't take themselves quite as seriously, who I personally enjoy being around those kind of people more and are willing to have a little fun with it. And it's an important way of fusing it into your culture. So I guess my point is you can start this process of infusing this culture right at the moment that you are looking at the kind of people that should be in your company.
Yeah, that goes so many ways. I always use that analogy for marketing. Walking into a party, how do you connect with the right people in the right way to tell your story or to get what you want out of that relationship? Humor, fun, positivity is the vehicle to do so. It breaks down barriers. It allows people to be themselves. It allows you to be vulnerable, which is always an attractive to an audience or a person. I just think it's a human characteristic that makes people drop their guard. And that goes throughout life. It bleeds into marketing, but it just goes throughout life. Without human connection, who are we?
Um,
Individually, as a collective.
well, out of interest, Inspira Marketing, are you guys all in the office, or is it a hybrid environment or a remote environment?
We're hybrid. We're
Yeah.
hybrid.
And about how many people are in the company?
400.
Wow, so this is significant. That's a serious team.
Yep.
Yeah, I think when you've got 12 people or 15 people, it's much different in terms of how you breed good culture and so on. How do you deal with that in a remote or a hybrid work setting, in your opinion? Do you have any kind of practical strategies that for incorporating joy or fun into a remote or hybrid work setting? Because I think it's more challenging,
Yep.
and I don't know if it's more challenging. It's certainly a different challenge, and I would argue an even more specific challenge at the scale that you guys are at.
Yeah. Like Zoom communication is
Mhm,
horrible at best. It sucks.
mhm,
You know what I mean?
mhm,
Especially from my background, I've always been around people. My teams that I've been involved in have been next level tight, like almost like sports teams. They have you back, yet you have theirs, or is always a good culture. I was brought into this company and was blown away by a lot of things.
mm,
The biggest thing I was blown away by was the positivity that the leadership team exudes on a daily basis. The
mhm,
effort they put into making people feel good in
mhm.
so many different ways is next level. I've never experienced it before for an agency of this size.
Can you give me a practical example of the types of things that people might do?
The breakout groups,
Mhm,
the support groups, the education groups that exist outside of daily business is they're all welcoming, they're all supporting and helpful. And honestly, that's all awesome. But the people that run the business are genuinely good people and they love people. This business was built around people. I keep saying people, but it's so fucking important. That's the way that they built it. And it was one of the biggest reasons that I was so stoked to be brought along into this business was that alone crossed that delta for me.
mhm,
It's always been such a huge thing on my list. People have always been the most important, and Inspira just bleeds it, which is great. I've met people in my career that are so super successful. They're in front of some of the most important people in the world, and their mindset is so internally driven that they can't really experience
mm,
that amazement of meeting new people, meeting amazing people, and
mm,
forming relationships with them. And I felt like that always stuck with me. That was always such a waste to be at that level and not really enjoy those moments. For
mm.
me, like at the end of it all, that's more important than any success that you can draw out is those human connections. You take those things to the grave.
I couldn't agree with you more, specifically on the culture side. By the way, as you were talking about the impact of being part of Inspire and why you wanted to join them, I've had situations in my life where people have tried to acquire certain companies I've had over the years, and just it wasn't about the money. If you're
Yeah.
just not feeling it, it just doesn't work. I can't help but it never dawned on me before. By the way, we were talking about great culture, and I didn't know if this is the worst dad joke ever. You can't have culture without a cult. You know, it's
Next
really
time
good
on
in
the
there.
dads.
Yeah. So we've talked about a lot of the things that people are doing right. Is there anything you've seen out there that you would say are just that more common things or more disastrous things you've seen where people have tried to maybe inject fun into the company culture and it went wrong, or kind of common mistakes leaders have?
Yeah, I don't know if I've got an example, but forcing fun is never
Awkward.
going to work. You know, like, I love that. I guess that real life meme of like a pizza party. Like
Yeah.
a pizza party is just something that gets people together and rewards people. It's absolutely not that. It's the
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just man. Sometimes I piss my staff off relentlessly. I go out and talk to them and just talk shit, and you can see everybody's shoulders drop. They know that Brett's coming out to be an idiot,
Wind them up a bit. Yeah.
and you can see everybody just relax and take a breath. And
Mm,
I don't know. We're not solving the world's problems. This is something that we do every day. If we're not having fun,
mm,
there's really no point. I also feel like not being so serious about things really opens you up to accepting different ideas being creative, thinking around problems. Being too uptight on whatever level is really stifling for creativity. And if we're not being creative, we're not producing good work, we're not having fun. It's the root of all happiness, I feel, is being creative. I see resumes and I interview people, and everybody has the same thing. I just want to be creative with my job.
Yeah, yeah. One of the expressions I've used over the years I really love and resonates with me is this concept of being loose but tight. And
Yeah.
it's a really hard balance is if you're a leader or a manager to find this sweet spot of being loose but tight. And I think what that means to me is this idea that we can give you a lot of freedom and you can have fun with your job. And if you need to step away or just do personal things, great. At the end of the day, the tight part is no one loses sight of the fact that we had very specific deliverables and very specific dates at a very specific quality level that needs to get done. And if people can work around that, then there's a lot of flexibility in the role. And I think that gives opportunity for people to allow fun into the workplace. But I've seen some managers really struggle with it. They see people having fun. I've seen really strange managers over the years where they see people laughing too much in the office and it bothers them. They think people aren't being productive.
Mm.
And it's like, are they getting the work done that you wanted them to do and then some? Are the clients happy? Great. Then what's the problem? I think this is one of the things I think is interesting and why people are there trying to drive people back into the office in some cases is because I think there's some managers out there who have this fear of like lack of productivity and feel that they somehow need to watch people. And I would argue that if you feel that way, you probably just hired the wrong people.
Yeah, really. Absolutely. If you hire the right people, then this does not become a conversation at all. Like
Mm,
work-life balance, productivity, it doesn't become an issue. I guess what I learned early on in the surf industry is that whole adage of work hard, play hard,
mhm.
experience that were the building blocks of my career. I went through periods, years, where there was no play, and you have to suck that up when you're running your own business.
Yeah.
But that balance, and you're talking about that with being tight and loose, balance is the key to all of this. It's like never skipping leg day. You have to flex all those muscles from being on it and understanding what the needs are, understanding those objectives, bringing those out, but also doing it in a way that you get joy from so you don't burn out, so you don't hate it. And that balance, it's work. You have to work on it. I have to work on it. Even though I feel like I'm a positive guy, I
Yeah.
still have to work on it and
Mm.
understand what that balance looks like so it doesn't become a sore point.
Mm. One of the things I think it's easy to listen to you, Brett, and people will obviously pick up this sense that you find a lot of joy in what you do, but you're also a really successful guy. And I don't want to lose sight of that. To get to the place you got to, you've obviously had to take some big risks. You just don't start companies or become a senior leader without taking some risks throughout your career. What's the biggest risk, let's say, you've ever taken in your career? And ultimately, what did you learn from that?
Obviously, everybody has speed bumps in their trajectory. I think moving across the world from Australia to the US was always going to be difficult.
And it is literally across the world for anyone who's not aware. Is flip the map, basically.
Yeah. Starting a business without not being a citizen was difficult. And to add on top of that was my immigration status was sketchy. It wasn't sketchy legally, but it was a visa that had to be renewed every 2 years.
Mm,
During COVID, during some administrations, it got really difficult. We used to be able to just pop over the border to Tijuana, get it done, come back.
mm,
It was a weekend job. We got to the point where we had our bags packed, ready to fly to Canada to get out of the country so we didn't overstay our visa a couple of times
wow.
because of the process. And that was not only just bouncing from the country, that was leaving life, things like
School, kids
businesses,
in school,
kids,
things like
schools,
that.
dogs, houses. Being on the brink of disaster, it's not fun at all. But the fun and the positivity that I had built over here was the driving force to continue to fight. And that fighting spirit got us through a bunch of stuff, definitely the immigration stuff. I'm a
Mhm.
green card holder now, so hallelujah.
That's awesome. And I'd imagine, though, even in those kind of situations, you're dealing with your family and you've got two kids, if I remember correctly.
Yep, two boys.
Yeah. And so let's say when you may have to leave the country or even when you're traveling with them, I'm guessing that fun's even part of the element of how you manage stress with your own family.
Yeah. My family gets fun. And it's not fun going to Disneyland or whatever. We have fun from the second I get home from work. My kids are always playing pranks on me. We have a fun dynamic at home, and it is easier to deal with the hard times because, like we were talking about before, that positivity, that fun, that vulnerability brings us tighter together as a unit. And copy paste to a work setting, it's the same thing. You laugh and drop your guard with anybody, you bring them on board, and vice versa. And that creates stronger connections between people, which flows through everything. It flows through the good times and the bad times.
Brett, I have to ask, given sometimes life's not so fun, I think sharing what would happen to you with your visa sounds pretty stressful. But I do have to ask you at this moment for an O ship question. And for those of you who have never watched O ship before or are listening now on any of our podcast streams, this podcast was really founded around this concept that there are many successful people out there that you may follow in the media or learn about for the first time on a show like this. And it's easy to assume that some of the things that they have done in their career that allowed them to be successful was just like, bam, they set out and they did it and poof, it happened instantly. And sometimes it's easy to feel when you've landed on your face a couple of times that what did they do that I didn't do? Why have I not been successful in that way? Or am I sensitive failure, imposter syndrome, all the other things I think people go through. And I know I've been through, and I have a strong suspicion Brett's been through as well. And I think what we want people to know is every one of us has landed on our face in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes that was something that happened to us, maybe that shaped the way that we perform or act to others, professionally or personally. Sometimes that might be a lesson that changed the way that we do business. Sometimes it maybe wasn't a lesson, but just a learning on how to navigate a difficult situation. And sometimes it's none of those things. Maybe it was just something that went horribly off the rails, but was not very funny when it happened, but maybe is funny now, 10 years later. I don't care what version of that story you've got, Brett, but I would love to hear a no ship story for our audience if you don't mind.
Yeah, I don't love focusing on negative stuff. I have a very short memory with things that didn't go well, but I think COVID was difficult for everybody. My COVID story is like a whip. 2 weeks after the closure, we had lost over 50% of our business almost overnight. It was like being in the ring with Tyson, just hits coming and coming. And I remember that moment when we were like down to 50, 60% of lost clients. I was like, hang on a second, this does not make sense. What do we do in this time that nobody else is doing? What value can we bring? How can we bring some light to this shitty situation? And opportunity, the threshold to give up was right there. Like it was one step to give up. It would have been so much easier to give up. But giving up meant going back to Australia because without a job, I was out of the country. So there was that threshold there that we were like almost taking that step. But I remember making that decision. No, let's give it another shot. Let's get up off the canvas one more time and give it a shot. Within, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks, we had doubled our business that we were previously because everybody was like, hang on a sec, COVID, we need digital marketing.
Yeah.
So there was this influx. And my goodness, to being on that threshold to take the quit option, that's what I can laugh about, like how close I was. And I was like, what is it? What is the difference between that fork in the road, that split second decision to say, no, I'm going to continue, give up, that continue part, that makes me chuckle. How close I got to like.
I think this is a really common thing that people deal with. You get put up against the wall a lot. It's easy to give up. And I do think at some point people sometimes need to call it. But I've also seen a lot of people over the years where even I thought they should call it and they kept persevering and they did remarkable things.
Yeah.
So I think just having that encouragement to pick it back up. And I think this is a really key defining trait of an entrepreneur. And I think probably being able to find some humor in those moments, maybe let you deal with some of the stress that was along with that. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. That's very nice of you. Hey, so Brett, if people want to learn more about you or follow you or engage with you, what's the best way for people to find you these days?
Pick up the phone. I'll chat forever. You can't stop me. InspiraMarketing.com is a great way to get in touch with me. And I'm like 50% serious. Give me a call. I love chatting.
Is it an 800 number or a 900 number?
OnlyFans / no.
Is it, if people can, they also hunt you down on LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn. I'm all over the place.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. That's very kind of you.
I was lucky enough and have been in this long enough that all my usernames are just Brett Sirianni.
I love that. That's great. The OGs. So,
right.
thanks again for your time. And I want to thank everyone who's been watching or listening to the show this episode. Thank you for your time. Thanks for tuning in. The best thing you can do to support us is like the episode, share this episode, and most importantly, hit that subscribe button, whether you're on Spotify, Apple Music, or Google Podcasts, or watching us on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn or any other places we're streaming. Thank you. Thank you. We really appreciate you. Brett, I just wanted to say thanks again. It's been super fun spending some quality time with you. And I hope to see you again on a future episode of Oh Shit.
Oh, love it, mate. I'm stoked to chat to somebody as positive as you.
Thanks, man. It's always enjoyed talking to someone who's got a big heart and a big smile all the time. I think you and I could find fun in damn near anything. Absolutely. And with that, we'll see you guys next week on Oh Shit.
See you, mate.